Hiya. I stopped and started again on this video because I was looking up there to the camera and then it looked like I was looking up there the whole time and I didn't like that. But anyway, I'm back. I'm here. Nothing's been wrong. I got over my lurgy pretty much. And then last week was just a really busy week. And hubby was on early shifts, so he was leaving at like 6 in the morning. No, 5:30 in the morning. And I love you all dearly, but I'm not getting up at 5:30 in the morning to do a video for you because I sleep. So, and then he gets home at 2. So of course I was busy doing the hosting the table at lunch club on Thursday and home group and reception work and this, that and everything. And yeah, so I've just been busy. Now this week he's on late shifts, the hubby, so that means I have a bit of time. Yesterday was a busy day. I had reception work in the morning, immediately followed by a prayer meeting that myself and 2 other ladies in church have. And yesterday it was a very powerful meeting. You know it's a powerful prayer when you end up just sobbing. And I was praying in tongues. I have no idea what I was saying to the Lord, but hey, it was lovely. It was really lovely. And then after that, it was straight to the women's meeting in the afternoon. We have a lady who, well, she's now is a widow, but considering her age, she's fantastic. She travels here, there, everywhere. And in February, she went to No, she didn't go there. She went to Turkey. And she didn't go to Turkey for the sun and the beach and stuff. She went to travel and see things and learn about stuff. So there was a lot of pictures from Istanbul, some of the mosques, a palace, rivers, gardens. They have a thing for tulips, it would seem, over there. So beautiful gardens. Anyway, it was lovely. And I think she must have had an hour's worth of pictures to show us. And she talked about some of the places and was teaching us about things. And one thing that surprised me, the palace they went into one courtyard, and that was for one thing. Then they went into another one, and another one, and another one, and finally they went through the archway, the doorway, whatever, into what is the harem. Now I always thought a harem was where the women were, the concubines and blah blah. But actually she was saying that it translates to the word private. So it was more like the private living area. So I learnt something there. But it was lovely to see the pictures, and after that we all had a cup of tea or coffee and some biscuits, which were very welcome because I forgot to take any lunch with me. So by the time I got home, so I had to stop at the shop too, by the time I got home it was going on 5 and I was starved. So I ate a chocolate bar. I should not be eating chocolate. I'm told I'm diabetic. I'm fat. Hubby gets very cross when I say I'm fat. But there is about 16.5 stone of me. Oh dear. What is 16.5 stone in pounds for my American friends? Well, 140 is 10 stone. So 210 is 15 stone. Let's add on another 16. No. Another 14. So that's 224. 233, I think. So yeah, I feel fat. He says I'm not. He says I'm wonderful as I am. Bless his little cotton socks. But yes. So I shouldn't be eating chocolate, but I did. See, I've told the dreadful, awful truth of my weight. But I think I've got it right anyway. I know 140 is 10 stone. Yeah, definitely. What else do I have to tell you? I have a little update from our homeless man that we met. And I knew we hadn't seen him around for a bit, and I figured he'd found somewhere to stay. But apparently he was in the Christian cafe about the time we stopped seeing him. And a policeman and a social worker had asked him to go outside and talk to him. And anyway, he's now in the psychiatric hospital, which I think is it's not the nicest place for him to be, but he's not wet, he's not cold, he's being fed, he has a bed to sleep in. And I hope that now that the powers that be know there is an obvious need there, that they wouldn't discharge him. My words failed me then for a bit. They wouldn't discharge him without having made some arrangements. So hopefully he's not going to be homeless on the streets again. So that was that. I'm sitting here, I'm looking at my windowsill, which is now, as predicted, full of geraniums. That was Saturday, and we went there, and it was foggy to start with, but it ended up being quite a nice day. And we dug up lots of her weeds, her annuals that needed to come out. And as I told you before, she was going to just throw all these geraniums away. And I'm like, why? What's wrong with them? Why? Well, if you want them, my dear, you can have them. So I said, well, thank you very much. Yes, please. So 6 lovely geraniums. One of them is huge. And then I've also got a cyclamen there. And I have a ficus plant of some description or other. And I also have a begonia that I brought in from outside. And hopefully I can keep that going over the winter. And then the lovely lady gave us a poinsettia plant as a thank you for doing the work. So my bedroom windowsill is so full of plants, it's absolutely wonderful. And the geraniums are still flowering. It's beautiful. So that was Saturday. Sunday it was church and everything, and then we were talking, we had lunch and we had talking with our friends. This is another busy week really. This is the only day I'm going to be home. Yesterday I was reception and everything, as I said. Today I'm home. Tomorrow I've got story time in the morning at the library. That take from leaving home to getting back an hour at most. But in the afternoon we have the Thanksgiving service for our lovely friend that passed away last month, which no, I'm not looking forward to it. I mean, yes, we will be giving thanks for her life, but I know it's going to be emotional. And I know that if I see one person crying, then I'll be in tears because, oh dear, that's what I do. So that's tomorrow. Hubs has taken the whole day off so he can come, which is good. Thursday, I've got my knitting group. We're busy doing things for lots of things. There's blankets and bonding squares on the go for the NICU units, here, there and everywhere. Glove puppets are on the go. I'm still, well, amongst other things, I'm still sewing together squares that were donated to make lap blankets for the nursing homes, and I want to get that done and take them in before Christmas so they can be maybe Christmas gifts. And then I've been doing, which isn't knitting, I know, but I've done some diamond art. I've done 4 bookmarks and a whole set of Christmas tree decorations which need yet to be rolled and sealed. I've done some weird and wacky firelighters, natural firelighters, and I'm also doing little hats. Now, I don't mean human hats. I wonder even these hats might even be too big for a Barbie doll. I don't know. But the idea was that I was going to knit these little Christmas pudding type things and then put a sweet in. Well, time. I need a few more hours of time every day. Like, let's double 24 hours to 48, okay? But that's not going to work. So what I've done, when we get toilet rolls, I'm cutting them into 4, and then I'm just cutting strips of wool and so, and then pushing it through and pulling it out, tying it together, and then I'll shove the sweet into the hat. Next time I will show you, because that was not a very good description, and if I was teaching anybody, there'd be an awful mess in Craftland. So yes, so that is Thursday. Friday, I've started working back at, I don't know if I told you or not, I've started working back at the charity shop in the town on a Friday afternoon, just from 1 o'clock till 4. I'd sit there on the checkout, on the till, I talk to people, I scan their stuff, more talk. It's not work at all. It really isn't work. Everybody's so lovely. If there's nobody in the shop, I can just go and tidy up a shelf or something, look at the books. I tell you, Angie's like me. Angie over at Coffee and a Chat, she's like me. She likes books. And I also did an impression of her this morning. She said that if I drop her name and the name of her channel, she goes, oh. She did that to me. I'm just sitting there and I'm watching the video, and I heard my name and my phone, I started watching it on my phone. The phone went, whoa! And then I thought, now hold on a minute, let's go back here and have a look. And yes, she did. So thank you. That was such a lovely little shout out, Angie. Thank you. So, yes, so I look at the books. And, yeah, life's good. Saturday we're going to another elderly lady. This time it's not gardening. She had her car insurance renewal form come through, and they were going to charge her like £1,000. And I said, that's ridiculous. And she said, I know. So I said, well, don't you know how to go on to, I don't know, is it compare the market or whatever? And she said, no, I don't. And I said, look, let me talk to him. I'm sure he knows how to do it. And of course, hubby, being the man he is, bless his heart, he said, yeah, we'll go over. So we're going over on Saturday at lunchtime. And he can work with her on the computer and get that sorted out. And I might take my knitting and sit there and do knitting, or I'll just watch. But he said, I'd much rather you came with me because you never know what people are going to say. So I said, yeah, that's fine. So I should be going with him. And then Sunday, the town lights are going on. So I may well do a little video of the town lights going on while I'm down there and just put that up. It might just be like a few minutes, but yes. Okay, that's that. Now, excuse me. What I had promised to do, because I always say, if you've got any questions, let me know, and I'll try and talk about it, and, answer the question. And way back when, Angie said, how did I come to Christ? How did I become a Christian? What's my story? What's the greatest thing that I have learned, received, found from being a Christian? What was the other part of it? Anyway, so we're going to give that a go. Let's go back to being very young. I would say, well, right from year dot. My parents, they were both raised in Christian. Well, my dad was definitely raised in a Christian home. My mum, she was raised in a home where people helped each other. But I don't know that she was raised in a Christian home. They believed. They went to church. If they went to church, they had to wear hats, the girls, of course, and dress up and everything. But I don't know that they were really Christians. It was almost sort of like a hatches, matches, dispatches and high days church-going family. My mum didn't have, as a teenager, young adult child, she didn't have the best relationship, I don't think, with my grandmother. And so if she could go out, she did. Now, she used to go out to the Salvation Army. What do they call it? She used to go to their place and she would help out with cooking the meals and serving tea, coffee, stuff like that. And yeah, I think she got a good grounding in Christian things, but she never actually became a Christian. When they asked her if she would be a uniformed member of the Salvation Army, she said, no, I will not. And she stopped going, which was sort of sad. So anyway, My dad, well, he was, I don't think he was a Jack the Lad so much, but he did like to have a drink. He was in the armed forces during, national service time. He was in the RAF, served in Cyprus. They met at a mutual friend's wedding. I think Dad was, I think he might have been the best man or an usher or something. And my mum was a bridesmaid. And that's where they met. And I think about 2 years later they were married. And I'm debating whether to say this or not, but I was already on the way. Anyway, I don't remember I didn't have an unhappy childhood. No, didn't have an unhappy childhood at all. I do remember I would have been about 7, 8. And I don't know whether somebody next door had passed away or somebody's mother had died, but books came in and I was a great book. Even back then, books. And there was this really old prayer book. And it was teeny tiny. I mean, we're talking like the 1800s. It was a tiny little prayer book. And I said, I want that, Mum. So I had it. And I didn't have a Bible. To my knowledge, there was no Bible in the home. But there was, because Mum had been given a Bible. In fact, it's up there now. A little white boxed King James Version Bible. She'd been given one when she was 21 years old. And she kept it in a drawer. It never came out. But I didn't have a Bible, but I now had this prayer book. And I do remember just sitting in bed reading all these prayers and I was going to say liturgies, but is that the right word? So there was always that sort of spiritual thing. Everybody in the home believed in God, but nobody went to church, nobody did anything. And I had that yearning, I suppose. Anyway, then I said to Mum that I would like to go to Sunday school. And she said, well, if you really want to go to Sunday school, you can. There's one that the Sunday school is in the local CFE church. That is in the afternoon between 2 and 3. And you can go there if you come straight home afterwards. And I thought, well, where else would I be going? So I went, and I remember that turned me off dreadfully because we weren't taught anything. We weren't taught a thing. What they wanted us to do, and there was me and there was a couple of boys, and I think there might have been another couple of girls. And it was the curate that took Sunday school, but we weren't taught. It was like, well, you're doing something for God. You're going to cut these stamps off these envelopes and trim them up and get them ready for donating. And for an hour, we did that. And I thought I was really helping God. This was great. I'm helping God. But I wasn't taught anything. And then one day, I don't know what the boy did. I haven't got a clue. I can't remember. But the curate just let rip, and he yelled and he yelled and he yelled and he swore. And I went home and I said to Mum, I'm not going again. I always thought it was because of what I've been through in my life that I can't cope with people shouting. But you know, it's not. It's always been something in me. If you raise your voice and start shouting, even if it's not at me, I can't cope with it. I don't know why. But I said to Mum, I'm not going anymore. And she was like, okay. if you don't want to go, that's fine. So we just sort of boogied along, and roll on to when I am about, a couple of years later, 10 years old maybe, 11. Yeah, 11, 12 years old. I'd left the brownies already. I'd done the brownies and I'd gone up to guides. Didn't really enjoy guides that much. It was all tying knots and building fires. I was just like, oh, it's not quite me yet. Anyway, so I wasn't really enjoying that. And then at school, this new girl came. I have no idea where they moved from, but this new girl came into class, and I was sort of asked, would I keep an eye on her? Would you just make sure Jackie knows where to go and what to do? I said, yeah, okay. So we became really good friends. And I said to her one day, I really don't enjoy guides. And she said, well, why don't you come to Girls' Brigade with me? Well, what's Girls' Brigade? Well, Girls' Brigade is down at the church, and it's sort of like guides, but we do this and we do that and we do that. And I said to my mum, can I go and try Girls' Brigade? And she said, well, I suppose. And that was on what night did we go? Wednesday. So down I went to Girls' Brigade, and I loved it. Finally, I was being taught a bit about God, a bit about Jesus. It was marvellous. There was things like flower arranging. There was some household maintenance, like doing plugs and whatever. There was the outdoor things too that you did. So it seemed to be, it wasn't just tying knots. We did have a knot tying thing, but it wasn't just tying knots, building fires, doing this, doing that, doing the other. And I really enjoyed Girls' Brigade, and so I stayed there from my last year of juniors right through to brigaders, which is when I left. They had summer camps, and it was in 1976, and I went to Girls' Brigade camp, and there was a lovely lady there who took on the role of padre, and every evening she would do a little talk, and then she'd say, if you want to find out about how you can become a Christian, I'm going to be in my little room, knock on the door, if I say come in, come in. And I thought, I want that. I want to be saved. I want to be forgiven of, because I started turning it. I got to go backwards a little bit. You know how teenagers can be real brats. Real brats. I was turning into a real brat. I'd shout at my parents. I'd shout at my siblings. I've got a younger brother and a younger sister. I was a real cow. I was rebellious in the way that I didn't want to do homework. Thank you very much. I'm going to study. No, not going to do that. I want. And I was just being an unpleasant early teenager, tweenie. I don't like myself when I think back to it. And I was like, I really want to be forgiven of that and to be able to turn myself around. And so I went in and I saw Padre, and it was that night on the 25th of July 1976 I gave my heart to Jesus. Yay! It was wonderful. I did not feel the earth move or anything like that. I didn't feel like I was going to explode or anything, but I know it happened. When I went home, I told Mum and Dad, and they were like, huh? Right, fine, okay. And then the pastor from the church thought he'd better come, and I think people have spoken to him, and he came to see Mum and Dad and explained a little bit more about it. And they were happy with me going to the church on a Sunday morning. Obviously, I'd given up guides. I stayed in Girls' Brigade. So, yeah, they just sort of thought, oh, well, she'd grow out of it, I think. I really think that's what they thought. Oh, yeah, she'd grow out of that. I do remember the pastor coming, and Mum said, she's a much nicer person now. And I thought, I don't know why, I think she had me sitting there with him when they were visiting. I wondered what that was. It's my watch making a fairy. But I remember her saying she's a much nicer, calmer person now. And I thought, oh, there you go. Jesus is doing a miracle in me. And yeah, so there you go. Mum and Dad didn't start coming to church with me. My brother and sister didn't come to church with me. I was the odd bod. That Christmas, I was given a Bible for Christmas. Oh, I love my Bible. I still have it, but lovely red hardback King James. Oh, I love my Bible. Mum and Dad were very concerned, actually. They said, well, do you think you can read something a little bit lighter? And I'm like, but I love my Bible. So it was like, oh, give her another book to read, for goodness sakes. But anyway, life went on and went on. I was fine. I went to sixth form college and took O-levels. I got through that all right. I still had some sort of rebellious. You always knew if I wasn't quite in as much prayer, reading or whatever as I should have been, because something would come out like, I don't want to do this. I don't tell me to do that. I was a Christian, but I don't know if I was completely sold out to Jesus. Anyway, college happened, and then I wanted to go into nursing. And the first nursing job, the nursing training school, they didn't have any vacancies until actually I think it was 18 months' time. But I didn't want to not have a job, so in nursing. So I got a job as what they then called a nursing auxiliary, and now they call them HCAs. And so I had that job. But because of that, there's very often back then you did split shifts a lot. And because I was a youngster, they gave me a lot of split shifts, which would mean I'd be working from 7 to 11, and then I'd have to go back at 5 and work till 7:30 again. So I was doing morning and evening. And if I was doing that on a Sunday, I couldn't get to the Monday services, the morning services, or the evening services. And I didn't like split shifts because it just ruined your life completely. You didn't have a life. But I do remember when I was on an early shift one Sunday and I went there, and it was a very unfortunate thing that she said, really, I suppose. Well, if you really believed in God, and if you were really a Christian, you wouldn't even work on a Sunday. And I'm like, but I'm a nurse. I'm a nurse. What am I going to do? Leave my people without someone to look after them? And if they need a split shift, But anyway, I was told I was not serving God properly, and obviously not a real Christian, and I should rethink my career choice. Didn't want to rethink my career choice, thank you very much. And it was very unfortunate because it made me stop going to church. And so from 1980, the early part of 1982, right through to 1987, didn't want to know. I still believed. I would still pray occasionally. Bible reading wasn't happening. I wasn't going to church. I totally backslid. Totally, completely backslid. Now, what happened during that time? I had a marriage. I got married to somebody that I truly loved. Neither of us were Christians. Well, I mean, I was, but I wasn't. He definitely wasn't. And we were married for a good 3 years. And then all of a sudden he announced to me that he was gay. What? There had been no inkling in my life, in our lives, that he was gay. Nothing that would tell me that if there was, I wouldn't have married him. I'd have loved him as a friend. I was absolutely heartbroken. And because even though I wasn't going to church and I wasn't a Christian and everything, this is going to be such a long video, I'm sorry. I was still of the mind that if you get married, it's for life. And I was going to be with him for life. I loved him. And then he was gay. And he wanted out. So yeah, much as I didn't want to, and I tried my hardest not to let the divorce happen, but it did. And so then there I was with I felt such shame. I was married to a man who was gay and I didn't know, and I was so ashamed. And it was a horrible, horrible time. But I mean, the house that we had, I loved that house. I loved it. Had to be sold. And I moved into a mobile home. Loved my mobile home. Lovely. And not far from there was a church, a United Reformed Church. The URC had merged with the Methodist Church, but this church that I went to was different because it was what do they call it? Charismatic. people would speak in tongues and everything. And that really reignited my passion for Jesus. I prayed for forgiveness for leaving him out of my life, and everything was just reignited, and the love I had for him took over again. That's the only thing I can say, it took over again. I got involved in Bible studies. I was still nursing. And yeah, that was good. Then I went on a holiday to America to visit my aunt and uncle over there. And I met the man who would become my second husband. Please don't think I'm promiscuous, because I'm not. But this man, he was an elder in their church. It was a Mennonite church. He was an elder. He was also the principal of the Christian school which they ran. And we went about together a little bit when I was over there visiting, and we kept in touch a lot. And I honestly thought, he's a good Christian man. He's wonderful. He's a good Christian man. I'm a Christian woman. And when he asked me to marry him, I said yes. He would not even think about the possibility of him moving over here to the UK to live. And I ended up moving over there to America, to Pennsylvania, with this Mennonite church and everything. And you know, when you almost know before you do something that this isn't right, this isn't what God wants. And I remember, because over here you get ready to go to your wedding at your home, not in the church rooms. And then the car leaves with you and your dad in the car alone. I can remember the bridesmaids had left, and I said to Dad, I'm not sure. And he said, neither am I. And I said, well, I can't back out now. He says, why not? I said, everybody's there. A lot of money's been spent. I can't not do it. He says, yes, you can. I said, I will go. You just stay here. I will go. And I said, I can't do it. I can't do it. I should have done it, but I didn't. I went there and got married. It took 12 hours for the abuse to begin. 12 hours. I remember we went on honeymoon, and we were on a train travelling from Paris to Nice. And he had gone to sleep. I forget what book I was even reading, but he was asleep. And so I thought, oh, I'll take my book out of my bag and I'll read. Anyway, he woke up and I was reading a book. He says, what are you doing? I said, I'm reading. I said, because, you were asleep, so I'm having a read of my book. He said, I'll put it away now. He said, you'll put it in the bin. I said, but I haven't finished it. I don't want to put it in the bin. And I can remember he took it away from me and he threw it in the nearest bin he could find. And he said, you will never, ever read another book. I love books. He threw my book away. That was 15 hours into it. And it just continued. I stayed with him for 15 years in America. A lot of the abuse I thought was a cultural thing. A lot of it I thought was my fault. But we're talking physical, mental, verbal, financial, sexual. Every form of abuse you can think of, it happened, and he was still a highly regarded elder of the church. I had 3 children. It's not necessarily that I loved him enough to be having intimacy with him. It was, and please believe that this is the thing that happens, marital rape. 3 children, 2 miscarriages. Yeah. It was a hard life. It was a hard life. I got to 15 years in and he said, do you know what I've got in the attic? I said, nope. What have you got in the attic? Thinking it was going to be old photographs, whatever. He said, I've got a shotgun and I have got 4 bullets. I said, oh. He said, you will sit there and watch while I shoot each one of the children. And the last thing you'll see is a gun to your forehead. At which point I decided that marriage was done. To this day, he is still an elder in the church. I don't get it. But anyway, I contacted the women in crisis people, and the children, they found us a spot in a shelter, and we went to a shelter. And at that point I thought, obviously I'm not going to get to leave America and come back here, but the children, I will be in our own place. They go to school. We'll all be a lot happier, going to a different church, blah, blah, blah. Took me to court. Where are you living? I said, well, at the moment I'm in the shelter. But you can't have 3 children in the shelter. And they took them away and they put them with him. And that was where an awful lot of trouble began, because he then began abusing the girls. And basically all 3 children are now estranged from me. And all the things that they've been told about me that by an elder of the church, they have believed. And I am still waiting for the day when the truth comes out, and my children, my 2 daughters and my son, come back and re-establish contact with me. when that happened, I thought, well, I'll stay in America. I'm going to fight for my kids. So I had a little apartment, and I was bitter. I was bitter and angry at God. How? No, he's an elder of the church. How can this be happening? Don't you dare tell me that you told me not to get married to him on that day back in 1991. Don't you tell me that. Why can't you sort this out now? Bring my kids back to me so they can have a rounded time, and we get back to a different church where life is much more normal. I was cross with him. And I said, I'm so cross with you, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm cross with you. And that went on for a month. And then there was a knock at the door. And I opened the door and I said, oh. And it was actually the pastor's wife from the church that I would have taken the kids to. And she's like, okay, why did you come to church? I said, do you really want to know? And she said, yeah, well, I'll make you a cup of tea then, and I'll tell you. So I told her basically everything that I've just ranted out to you. And she was like, but you haven't told God you don't love him. I said, no, but I'm angry with him. And she said, you're allowed to be angry with him, but you get over it. Come to church. So we've even got a pot lunch after service. So I went back to church, and that church was so loving, so wonderful. The pastor of that church said he wanted to meet with my now ex because he wanted to see if there was any point in him counselling me to go back to him. And when he got out of that meeting, he spoke to his wife and said, I want you to ring her because I'm not going to go over there because of how it looks. I tell her there was absolutely no love there. There was just meanness and abuse and hatred from him towards her, me. And I will not counsel that girl he called me the girl. I will not counsel that girl to go back to him. And so his wife told me that. And they supported me through so much. However, it got to the point, that was 2006, that I went back to the church. 2008, I had a new job. I was making ends meet, just about fighting the good fight to try and get the kids. That never did happen, not to this day. I was washing up the dinner things, and I thought, oh, that hurt. What have I done? And I thought, oh, I've pulled a muscle. Oh, I'll finish washing up, go sit down, and I thought, oh, I feel really sick too. Ooh. Oh, this isn't right. I'll watch some TV. Couldn't watch TV. Well, in fact, I didn't have TV then because it was all cable and everything, so it was a video I put on. And I was like, no, I can't watch this. So I went to bed. And the Saturday, I was in and out of consciousness. And I know it wasn't sleep, it was, I was just passing in and out. And I know I couldn't get up, I couldn't move. I was in so much pain. And about 3 a.m, I rang my aunt, the one that I had been visiting when I first met the now ex. And I said, I need to go to the hospital. Well, you know, over there, ambulances cost money. And I didn't have the money put aside for an emergency like an ambulance. And she said to me, can you wait until lunchtime when I've been to church? I said, no. I said, I think I might be dying. And there was no fear. I mean, when I was a kid, I was so terrified of dying. But there was no fear. I just said, no, I think I'm dying. And if you want me around, I think you need to take me to hospital. No fear. Yeah, if I die, I die. It's okay. I don't mind. Anyway, she came, she took me to hospital. And they prepped me for a surgery. They thought I had a burst appendix. I would have been off a few days from work and gone back and it would have been fine. They opened up the little thing and they thought, my bowel had ruptured and I was very full of poo. So that was a major surgery. They had to put me a colostomy, which has since been reversed, but they had to put that on. They put me onto a ventilator. So when I did come to for a little bit, my arms were tied down because, you know, immediately you would go and try to grab the tubes out, but they tied my arms down. So I was on a ventilator for a day or two, I can't remember. And basically, I am quite fortunate to still be alive. If I wasn't, I know where I'd have been, but I'm fortunate I'm here. The now ex just said, well, it had to come out sometime. The evil is always stored in the gut. And so it had to come out because you're just pure evil. And that's what he told my children, who never came to see me, never did anything. But I was really ill. But I was never afraid of dying. Never afraid of dying. Whereas I had been years and years before. Without Jesus, I'd been terrified. But not now. So anyway, that was the big thing. And then the next year I had to go back in and have everything reversed. And then the next year I had to go back in and have a hernia repaired because the job I had was a unit secretary in a nursing home. So I'd been picking up boxes of paper. Shouldn't have been doing that. And I managed to give myself a hernia, which needed to be reversed. And then at that point, the place I worked for said, that's enough, you're sacked. What? I can't help it. And again, I'm like, oh God, what am I going to do? And the jobs that weren't coming, they weren't coming. I wasn't getting a job. And the best thing I could think of, especially as my dad was getting poorly, I said, and the kids were, even to this day, I've been over here now 14 years. And they still don't speak. And I thought, well, what is the point of staying there and struggling and not having the children's love anyway? So I came back over here. And, jobs have been, they came. And I was quite happy doing my own single life, all the rest of it. And I think I said when I was talking about how my husband and I met, that I'd been on my own for so long. I'd had a couple of people that I dated and I was like, no, that's not going to be it. I got involved in the church I'm at now. And I just said, if you want me to be single now for the rest of my life, that's fine. I've had 2 tries at marriage and both of them were pretty pathetic. So, it's fine. I don't need I don't need to be married. It would be nice it'd be nice to have somebody so you weren't alone. But I don't need things on my finger. I'll just concentrate on you, Lord. And then, of course, Ian turned up again. Ian that I'd known for 40-something years. And, as I told you in one of the previous videos, we've ended up being married. Absolutely wonderful. He became a Christian after we met up again. So I've watched him become a Christian and start blossoming. And it's wonderful. It's so wonderful to see somebody blossom out into what God wants them to be. And I feel that I am blossoming out now. I'm back at the church I was at when I got saved, where Girls Brigade was. People remember me from my teenage years. It's amazing. Amazing how people remember me from back then. And I remember them too. So that's good. And he really is God, Jesus, really is my everything. Ian's my everything, but God supersedes that. He's my even more everything. I'd die for him. He's been there for me through everything, every bad thing, even though I've been so angry at him. He's always been there. Even if it's working through my friends coming to me and saying, why aren't you coming to church? Where have you been? He's forgiven me of so much. I'm turning my back on him. When that one lady said an unfortunate thing, and I took it to heart, I didn't take it to him. And that led me to marrying somebody who was obviously not in his plan for me because the man was gay. And then I was on my own. And I didn't listen to the Lord and to the Holy Spirit when they said, you shouldn't be going. Don't do this. I didn't listen. I think that's what everybody needs to know, is to just, if something comes into your head and you think, what's that about? Stop, pray, ask Jesus, what is that about? What's going on? And he will guide you in the steps that you should go. He will. If I had listened 15 years, well, more than that, about 20 years in the end, of absolute terror and abuse, it wouldn't have happened to me. Having gone through all of that abuse, I can think I can help other people who have been through things like that. I can be empathetic to them. You've just got to believe, you've got to trust. And now I've got my husband, and yeah, we're good. And also the book, this Bible of mine, it's somebody said to me the other day, "Oh, you mean business with this one?" Yeah, I do a bit. And I was looking up a verse before I started this. And it's from the first letter of John that I found. And it's verse 5. "This is the message we have heard from him and proclaimed to you, that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. If we say we have fellowship with him while we walk in darkness, we lie and do not practice the truth. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another. And the blood of Jesus, his Son, cleanses us from all sin." Cleanses us from all sin. Everything. Even the times when I've wanted to turn around and smack that abusive husband straight in the teeth. I'm forgiven for that. Even the times when I was slicing up a joint of beef, and I had a knife in my hand, and I actually thought about turning around and stabbing him in the gut. I'm forgiven. I didn't do it. Of course I didn't do it. But I'm forgiven for those thoughts, because even thinking bad things can be sin. But the blood of Jesus, his Son, cleanses us from all sin. If we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves. Because even now, I'm a sinner. And if we deceive ourselves, then the truth is not in us. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins, as to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. See, that's twice he's saying, cleanses us from all sin, cleanse us from all unrighteousness. If we say we have not sinned, we make him a liar, and his word is not in us. And God is no liar. God is no liar. How important it is, that was verses 5 to 10. But for twice, he said, cleanse us from all unrighteousness, cleanse us from our sins. And yeah, when I was a little 13-year-old, almost 13, and I asked Jesus into my heart, I was forgiven then. But as I've been telling you, there's been so much that I've committed, sins that I've done. I've got cross with him, I've walked away, I've come back. Then I got cross, and bitterness was coming in towards God. Look what you've done. He's an elder in the church, and he's doing this to me. Why? What? Why can't other people see this? And I was so angry with God for so long. I just wanted to punch things and shout at things. And of course I didn't. Because if I had done that, then the kids would have been next in line. So yeah, there's been trauma. There's been much difficulty. I'm so blessed. I'm back to, I came back to God. I knew when I left that lovely church in America and came back, they sent me back here. It was sort of like, how if it's a missionary, they have like what's the word? A special service to pray the missionary off. It was almost like they did that to me. And I knew I was coming back to our Baptist church. And this is home now. What a wonderful church I have. what a wonderful ministry I'm finding myself given in the knitting. I thought because of the arthritis and the fibro and the this and the that, I thought I would have no usefulness for God. Knitting can be useful. Diamond arting can be useful. Making weird little hats from toilet roll holders, which I will show you next time. That can all be useful. Praying, having a prayer ministry can be useful. And I am just so thankful. So thankful that all the times that I have turned my back on God, He's always gone. When I've turned back around, He's always gone, come here, Missy. Let me give you a big hug and welcome you back. He's never turned his back on me. I'm the one who turned my back on him. He never turned his back on me. He's always been here. When I've come back to him, he's always been here. And he's blessed me beyond measure with a wonderful church family, with a wonderful, wonderful husband now. The husband I have now, well, he is, look at that man. Isn't he wonderful? Gentle, kind. I just love him to bits. And I'm so thankful to God that he brought him to me, and now my real life with Jesus can begin. Not the life where I'm being told you must wear a covering on your head. I still wonder if I should be wearing a head covering. Angie, you can chime in on this one. For 15 years, I was with people who wore head coverings, and if you didn't, you were shaming God when you prayed. I don't think that's true. But then I sort of think, should I be wearing a scarf? I don't know what to do. So I asked my husband, and he said, no, don't hide your hair. So now I'm honouring him. But there's a lot of things like that. I didn't mean to get all teary-eyed. But yeah, I think there's so many, I was just thinking there's so many Bible verses. There's the one from 1 John that I've just read you, that the blood of Jesus cleanses you from all sin. But you know what else Jesus said? Come unto me, all ye who labour and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And there's so many times in my life where I have been so heavy laden. And when I've come back to him, yes, he has always given me rest. He's always given me peace. And I can absolutely tell you without a shadow of a doubt that his love is the best love. And I think now I need a cup of tea. I don't know about you, but oh dear. And that's over an hour I've talked about this. See, I can ramble on and on about life, what it's done to me, all these things have made me who I am now. Kind of. So I hope you stick with me throughout this. If you have stuck with me through this. Thank you so much. Mwah. Thank you, Angie, for asking the question. I hope this has answered it. And yeah, if anybody else has got any questions, please do ask. I can't promise, I can't even threaten that any answers would be as long as this one, which is probably good for you. But right for now, I'm going to love you and leave you, and I'll catch up with you very soon. Okay, bye-bye.